I've spent my whole life watching people age. Some of them stayed sharp and quick well into their 90s, still telling the same stories with all the right details, still beating everyone at cards. Others started slipping in their 60s, forgetting names, losing their train of thought mid-sentence, and nobody around them could ever tell you exactly why. For years, I thought it came down to luck or genetics, or just the cards you're dealt. What I've come to understand from decades of watching family, friends, and neighbors grow older is that it's shaped far more than we realize by small, ordinary habits, the kind that could be quietly protecting your memory right now today, or just as easily working against it, depending on which way you're leaning without even knowing it. Here's the part that really unsettled me when I first understood it, and I want you to sit with this for a second. There's no dramatic moment where this starts, no single test that catches it early, no morning where you wake up and suddenly notice something's wrong. It just quietly adds up year after year, so gradually that it hides itself inside what everyone assumes is normal aging, until one day you notice you're not quite as sharp as you used to be, and you can't point to when that started. That's what makes this worth 20 minutes of your time today. So, today I want to walk you through 7 of these everyday habits, the ordinary kind almost nobody thinks twice about. Starting with the one that actually surprised me the most when I first learned about it. And the very last one on this list isn't about what you eat, and it isn't about how you sleep. It's something most people do every single day without ever realizing what it's quietly costing them. Stay with me till the end because that one might matter more than all the others combined. Before we get into it, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Drop it in the comments. I always like seeing how far this reaches. Now, let's get into the first one. Number 7. Treating multitasking like a badge of honor. If you're someone who prides yourself on doing 3 things at once, half listening to the television while you're on the phone, while you're planning dinner, I need to gently push back on something you've probably believed your whole life. Picture your last conversation over dinner while the news was playing in the background. Can you actually remember what was said? Multitasking feels productive. It feels efficient. But researchers who study attention have found something that surprised a lot of people. What we call multitasking isn't really your brain doing 2 things at once. It's your brain switching back and forth rapidly between 2 things. And every single switch has a cost. Your attention has to disengage, reorient, and re-engage each time. And that process is associated with weaker memory formation. In plain terms, when your attention is constantly splitting, your brain has a harder time actually locking new information into place. That's why you can have a whole conversation while cooking dinner and minutes later not remember a word of it. This is fairly well understood at this point. It's one of the more consistent findings in attention research. This seems to matter most for the kind of memory that helps you follow a story, retain a conversation, or recall why you walked into a room in the first place, the everyday memory that makes you feel like yourself. The fix isn't complicated. It's giving yourself small windows, even just 20 minutes, where you do one thing and only one thing. Read without the television on, have a phone call without scrolling, cook without 3 other things pulling at your attention. Staying someone who can follow a conversation all the way through, finish a story without losing the thread, and remember why you walked into that room. That's what this one's really about. Number 6. Skipping the walk because it feels too small to matter. So many people save their energy for the real exercise, the gym class, the swim, the structured workout, and skip the plain ordinary walk around the block because it doesn't feel like it counts. I want to challenge that because when it comes to your brain specifically, that boring walk might be doing more than you think. Regular light movement is associated with increased blood flow to the brain, and researchers studying healthy aging have found that consistent aerobic activity, even at a gentle pace, is linked to support for the growth of new neural connections. Picture it this way. Your brain, like every other organ in your body, depends on circulation. Every time you move, you're helping deliver oxygen and nutrients to the exact tissue responsible for memory and clear thinking. This is a habit a lot of people who age well seem to share. Whether they think of it as a brain habit or not, they just never stopped walking. This matters for mobility too, of course, for your joints, your balance, your independence at this stage of life. But the brain benefit is the part most people never hear about, and it's genuinely one of the simplest, lowest cost habits on this entire list. You don't need equipment. You don't need a class. 10 to 15 minutes, same time each day if you can manage it. So it becomes automatic rather than something you have to talk yourself into every morning. And the sooner you build it into your routine, the more it compounds. This isn't a habit with a ceiling. Staying mobile means more than being able to get around on your own. It means staying present enough mentally to actually enjoy where you're going and who you're with when you get there. Number 5, eating alone most meals most days. This one is quiet and it's common, and most people don't think of it as a health habit at all. They think of it as convenience, cooking for one, eating in front of the television, going through the whole day without really talking to anyone over a meal. Here's what long-term research on aging has consistently shown. People who maintain regular social engagement tend to show slower cognitive decline than those who don't. Researchers believe it isn't just one thing driving that. It's the combination of conversation, mood, and the simple structure that comes with sharing a meal. Talking with someone else, following their story, responding to what they say, that's active mental engagement every single time you do it, even if it doesn't feel like exercise for your brain in the moment. It also tends to support mood and memory are far more connected than most people realize. A lonely afternoon and a foggy afternoon often go hand in hand, even if we never think to connect the two. You don't need to overhaul your whole life to fix this. One shared meal a day is often enough, and if nobody's available in person, a phone call while you eat counts too. The habit that matters is the connection, not the setting, because in the end, staying connected to other people is one of the ways you stay connected to yourself. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the next 2 items on this list aren't really about anything you're doing wrong. They're about what you've quietly stopped doing. Number 4, letting your hobbies quietly disappear. I hear this all the time, and I used to say it myself. I just don't have time for that anymore. The garden gets smaller, the instrument stays in its case, the puzzle books stop getting bought. It feels like a neutral, practical choice. Priorities shift, that's all. But I want you to hear this as a flag, not a footnote. Researchers who study healthy aging talk about something called cognitive reserve, essentially the brain's buffer against decline, built up through novel and engaging mental activity over the years. Learning something new, even something small, is associated with helping build and maintain that reserve. It's not about being good at the hobby. It's about the act of engaging with something unfamiliar, working through it and sticking with it, even imperfectly. This seems to matter most for people who let every form of mental challenge fade out all at once. Work, hobbies, learning, altogether, rather than those who keep at least one thread of it going. However small, you don't need a new pursuit. You need one small one, even 15 minutes a few times a week, with zero pressure to be good at it. Pick the puzzle back up, try the instrument again, badly, for the joy of it. This next part matters. It's genuinely never too late to start this one, and the benefit doesn't require years to show up. Because staying curious isn't a luxury reserved for people with more free time. It's part of what keeps you feeling like you not just present, but engaged. If this is helping you think differently about your own daily habits, take a second right now to hit like and subscribe. It genuinely helps this reach more people who need to hear it, people just like you or like someone you love. Number 3, too much quiet, too much of the time. This is the one that tends to surprise people because it runs against everything we assume. We think of rest as always protective, always safe, but there's a version of quiet that isn't restful, it's understimulating. Researchers studying cognitive aging have found that people who go long stretches without any mental engagement at all, no conversation, no reading, no light problem solving, tend to show faster decline in some observational studies than those who maintain a moderate steady level of stimulation. Your brain, it turns out, is a bit like a muscle in this respect. It doesn't want extremes in either direction. It doesn't want to be overloaded constantly, but it doesn't thrive on total quiet either. It wants regular, moderate engagement, a crossword, a conversation, a chapter of a book, a card game with a grandchild. Think about the difference between two people at this stage of life. One fills her afternoons with small pockets of light engagement. The other lets the television run in silence for hours with nothing asked of her mind. Over years, that gap adds up in ways neither of them can feel day-to-day. The goal isn't more noise or constant stimulation. It's balance, alternating genuine rest with small doses of mental activity throughout your day, rather than defaulting to silence simply because it feels easier. This matters because staying sharp isn't about pushing yourself hard. It's about not letting the mind go completely idle for too long at a stretch. Number 2, treating poor sleep as just something that comes with age. So many people say some version of, "I just don't sleep like I used to," and leave it right there, as if it's simply the price of getting older and nothing can be done about it. I want to gently challenge that because sleep quality matters more for your brain than almost anything else on this list. During deep sleep, your brain runs something researchers call the glymphatic system, essentially a nightly cleanup process that clears out metabolic waste that builds up during your waking hours. Picture it like a night crew coming through after closing time, clearing away everything the day left behind so the space is ready again by morning. Chronic poor sleep, meaning consistently shallow or interrupted sleep over months and years, is associated with an increase in certain risk markers connected to cognitive decline in aging research. This connection between deep sleep and brain clearance is one of the more consistently replicated findings in recent sleep research, so this isn't a fringe idea. It's fairly well established at this point. This tends to matter most for people whose sleep has become quietly fragmented, waking multiple times, never quite reaching that deep stage, even if they're technically in bed for 8 hours a night. Here's a practical shift that helps more than people expect. Focus less on your bedtime and more on your wake time. Getting up at the same time every single day, even on weekends, helps regulate the deeper rhythms that control your sleep quality far more than simply trying to go to bed earlier. This keeps your whole system steady, while an irregular wake time tends to keep pulling it back out of rhythm. Because waking up clear-headed isn't a small thing. It's the difference between a day where you feel like yourself and a day where you're just getting through it. This last one might not sound like a brain habit at all, but researchers now think it might matter more than almost everything else we've talked about today. Number 1, not managing everyday stress. I know everyone talks about stress, and it's easy to tune that word out at this point. But stay with me, because I don't mean the dramatic, obvious kind of stress. I mean the quiet, constant, everyday kind that becomes so normal you stop noticing it's even there anymore. When stress becomes chronic, your body maintains elevated levels of stress hormones over long periods, and researchers studying brain health have found this sustained exposure is associated with effects on the very brain regions involved in memory formation over time. This isn't about the stress of one hard week. It's about years of low-grade, unaddressed tension quietly becoming your baseline without you ever realizing it shifted. What struck me most watching people age around me is that the people who stayed sharpest weren't always the ones who ate the most carefully or exercised the hardest. Often they were the ones who'd found some small way to genuinely release tension. A few minutes of quiet breathing, prayer, time in a garden, a journal, a walk with no destination in mind, something that let their body actually come down off alert even briefly every single day. Right now, today, not someday when things calm down. You don't need a complicated practice. 5 minutes a day of whatever genuinely helps you exhale. That's enough to start interrupting the pattern. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, and it isn't a luxury for people with easier lives. It's one of the most protective things you can do for the mind that holds every memory you have. 7 small habits, and not one of them dramatic on its own. But together they quietly add up in one direction or the other, starting today with whatever you do for the rest of this afternoon. So, tell me honestly, which one of these did you recognize in your own week? I'd really love to know. Drop it in the comments below. If this helped you see your own routine a little differently, subscribe and join me for more. I'll be right here next week with more of what genuinely helps as we age, not the fear, just the facts and the care behind them. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon.